Hey, what's up, you sexy bitches, and welcome back to this week's Weekly D. And today I have my good friend Annie Norris on with me. Now, you may have seen I posted an Instagram story a long while back saying that when you compete, you should want to win when you compete. This caused a lot of controversy. And Annie did a post to give her response to that on why she thinks you shouldn't want to win. So the discussion today is to win or not to win. That is the question. And today we discuss that. So I'm super excited for you to listen to this podcast because we discuss a lot of really good points when it comes to competing. So this is the Weekly D because, honey, if you ain't getting your D on the daily, you better at least begin once on the weekly.
If you're not getting any and you want some tea, then come and join Dan up on the Weekly D. It's the Weekly D.
Annie Norris, thank you so much for coming onto my podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on. Right, we're going to get this first bit out of the way. For anyone who may have seen this, I made a post a long while ago on my Instagram stories saying that you have to want to win to compete. And Annie did a follow-up post on this. Now, I just want to dispel any rumours because you know what people are like.
Oh, my God.
People might have seen that and be like, oh, they've got beef. Let me just say now that we are the least beefiest people. Like, we do not have any beef with each other whatsoever. So we're just going to dispel that rumour right now.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be in any way an argument. So if you're here for arguments, you may as well just turn this podcast off now. No, me and Annie have known each other for a very long time, and we're here just to discuss that topic really today, right?
Correct. Yeah, it was funny the amount of people that messaged me. They were like, "Ooh, drama." I was like, "No, not really."
It's like, no,
We've
not
messaged
really
privately.
at all.
It's fine.
And that's why I commented as well. It's really
Yeah.
funny because when I commented on your post, I was like, Annie, you could have tagged me.
Yeah.
That wasn't me being like, oh, bitch, you should tag me. Do you know what I mean? It was like, no, I don't mind if you tag me.
Yeah.
So it is really funny. So I have the opinion that if you're going to compete, you should want to win. Now, I just want to also explain my view on that. I think you should have to want to win, but it doesn't mean you have to win because there's no guaranteeing that, is there? Obviously, I've lost many competitions. I've not always come first. But every time I go, the dream is to win. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question. The dream is to win, but why do you feel like it's important that somebody has to want that to enter a comp?
Because it's a competition. And that's the whole point of competing, is that you're competing to be the best. Otherwise, if people were there not to win, what are we there for? There's no end goal. It's really funny because someone actually commented on your post and said, oh, well, I don't really go to win, but sometimes it's really annoying when judges give feedback that doesn't make any sense, or they don't give any explanation as to why they gave a 7 or whatever. And I replied to her and I said, but why does that matter if you don't want to win? She was like, oh, well, just because I want to be able to improve. And I'm like, but why do you want to improve if you don't improve to what? Improve to win or improve for yourself? Because if you want to improve for yourself, then why are you at a competition? Surely you could have just done that at a studio. That's what pole studios are for. You can still improve at a studio without competing.
Okay. I think this is like my problem is I like to know exactly what something means. Like I'm always really bogged down by the details. So do you think someone should want to win, or do you think if they go into a competition knowing they've got absolutely knowing they've got no chance of winning, should they not compete? Should they not go into that comp?
No. So this is what I'm saying. So this is where the complication came in.
Yeah, I think
you've got to want to win. Let me tell you, right? So I'm going to give you a perfect example. I'm considering entering Elite Pole Championships. Have you heard of it? Stacey's new one.
Yes.
So
I'm nodding, but yes.
Yeah. Are you going to enter it?
Same as you. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in I've got. In fact, we're going to talk about that because that's another subject I want to talk about. Because I'm just like, yeah, basically I'm still in a place where I'm still like, oh, I'm undecided what I should do. Right. And I've lost my train of thought because I've literally just talked about that, and now I'm thinking about having to compete with that, and it's stressing me out.
I was asking you, should you still enter a comp even if you know you've got no chance of winning?
Correct. Thank you for taking me back. So yeah, so now if I enter that competition, I already know there are a lot of people who are also thinking of entering, yourself now included, who are going to be in the pole idol section that I would be in. People I know that I can't beat. However, what I will do is that if I do enter it, I will sit down with that judging criteria and be like, right, what can I do to make sure that I do my absolute best to be able to give me a standing chance to win against people that I really don't think I could beat, but I'm going to sure as fucking hell try my best.
Okay.
It's like people going to the Olympics. They don't go to the Olympics thinking, well, I'm never going to beat these people, because that's just not a winning mentality. It's like, it's not a competition mentality. Do you know what I mean? If I was at a showcase, I'd be a bit more like, well, these people are all better than me, but that's okay, because we're not trying to win anything here. You know what I mean? But if I'm going to go to a competition and I'm going to put myself through that stress, you best believe I want a fucking trophy at the end of that shit, because I just put myself through so much stress, and I'm just like, I'm not willing to do that with no chance of winning. I'd rather
do you
not
think
turn
it's
up.
okay if people enter a competition and they know they've got no chance? But let's say they got through to the final and they're like...
Can I say something that is people are probably not going to like? And I know this seems really mean. If they've got no chance of winning, the likeness is they won't get through. I know it sounds really mean, but they're probably not going to get through. If they haven't got a chance of winning, they probably wouldn't have got through the video entries. Let's be real, right? So let's say, for example, you've got professional level category and you've got someone who has no chance of winning. The likeness is they're not going to get through to the final anyway. Are they? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. So there's a very well-known competition out there. I'm not even sure if it runs anymore. Where they would let like 16...
What does it sound like? What's the competition name? Say it.
It's Miss Pole, right? So then their final, they would have like 18 people in the final, and I genuinely don't know. So this isn't a criticism, but I genuinely don't know if they just let everyone through to the final who entered. And
are you joking? Of course, they must do, surely. There's no way that many people are entering. So I used to look at that competition and be like, how have they found so many people?
So there's an example, though. Like, if they're letting pretty much anyone through, there will be people in that final with no chance of winning.
But they don't know they've got no chance of winning. This is the thing. So for example, in that competition, right?
Yeah.
I think the reason why you might feel like you've got no chance of winning is because you're in a group of 16 people. So the lightness is lower, right? Mm-hmm. But actually, Miss Pole is a funny one because it's a bit of a different scenario for me, because people have won that competition before that I didn't think were going to win. And it's because it's not actually that competition. You can never judge it. It really just depends on who's going to put on a show, because it's a bit of a showgirl competition as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, and I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but when Sally Ann won it because she did have some good tricks, but she wasn't the trickster of the competition.
She wasn't, no.
She wasn't.
She was
I actually don't think she'll be offended by me saying that.
No.
But she was the showgirl of the competition. She knows you can't beat Sally Ann when it comes to putting on a show. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's that whole thing of like, she is a showgirl, and she put on a show and people ate it up and she won. You know, there will be people who'll be like, oh, well, her tricks weren't as strong as the other people, but it's not all about that. So,
okay,
I understand what you're saying. I do. Don't get me wrong. I do understand what you're saying. Like for example, like I said, if I enter Elite Pole Championships, I know the likeness of me winning is lower, but will I try? Of course, because that's the whole point for me with competing. I just think I want to get the best out of myself, and if I don't go and I don't envision the trophy in my head and think how nice it would be to hold it and be like, oh, I'm the winner, like how cool is that?
Yeah.
You know? And I feel like anyone who says they don't envision that is a liar.
Controversial. That's unlike you to be controversial, Dan.
But it is true. Like, when you go to a competition, isn't that the dream? Like, you probably have dreams about it and be like, oh,
okay, so
like, what if my routine goes really well and I win? Wouldn't that be so amazing, right?
Okay, so I'm going to put it to you. I've just got a couple of things to say. So I got through to a competition once, and I shit my pants so much. Not literally, by the way. I was so scared that I didn't tell anyone for about a month that I'd got through, because I felt like I didn't belong there. I felt people were going to be like, what the fuck? Like, how is she there?
So why did you enter it?
I don't know. I did it on a whim. So I'm not saying I didn't want to win, but it was IPC in Australia. And then I won Pole Idol. And they gave me money towards my flights and accommodation as well. So I was like, I guess I'm fucking going then. And I was on that stage with Heidi Coker and Natasha Wang. And I was like, holy fuck. I knew going there, I wasn't going to win. I know that I'm not putting myself down. I'm a certain type of polar, and tricks aren't my strong point. It's always how I do my tricks, not the tricks that I do. And I flew to Australia 10 days before my wedding, which is a stupid thing to do. And I went because I knew the opportunity to be on that stage with Heidi Coker, with Natasha Wang. There were loads of other amazing people there as well. I knew that being in that top 10 females from around the world is an opportunity like no other. And I think this is where, like, you and I could probably talk about this for hours, because of course I wanted to win, but I also knew I wasn't going to. And I'm not putting myself down. I just was like, okay, that, you know, that picture you get on the stage where you're waiting for it to be announced, I'm in that fucking lineup forever. And that's incredible. And that's why I went for the opportunity to showcase myself, showcase me as a pole dancer, and be remembered. I
find it funny because I actually think you are a contender against those people. And you might think I'm just saying that to blow smoke up your ass, but actually I've seen you compete. I always remember, right, when you got through to UK PPC, and do you remember that when you came to me for a private specifically to learn that cartwheel trick, and you put it in the routine? You were doing big tricks then. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, you've had a baby since, maybe you've calmed things down a little bit now. That's okay.
Yeah.
But it's that whole thing of, like, you know, there was a time where you were doing big tricks like that. So you were like, oh, I knew I wouldn't be able to win against those people. I'm like, but actually, I feel that's so funny that you feel that way, because I think there's a lot of people that would say, actually, you totally could, because the thing is as well, that, like I said, with MPD, same with that competition as well, IPC, you know, yes, tricks are a big part of it, but also, like, they want to see a show as well. So sometimes I'm always a bit like, I find that really interesting that you felt like you had chance.
Do you know what I find quite interesting about this whole conversation then is actually what we're talking about is mindset, only mindset.
Yes,
because
yes.
I've always been a bit... every comp that I've gone into, I've been like, I'd love to win. I know I'm not going to win. I look at the people in there. I don't think you and me have ever competed against each other, but if we had,
never.
I would be like, Dan Rosen's in there. There's no chance I'm beating him, you know. And that is the mindset I go in. So I always genuinely, hand on heart, I always want to win. Of course I do. Otherwise I wouldn't do a competition. But for me, and I'm not talking for everyone, I'm talking for me, I do go into every comp thinking I'm not going to win. Not wanting to think that. I try and change my mindset. I try and say, come on, Annie, you've got a chance. But, you know, I'm so used to standing on that stage and smiling and being like, I know it's not me. And then they call someone else's name. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. And then it's weird because I get what you're saying.
It's such a hard moment, that moment, isn't it? That moment
horrible.
is so hard.
Why aren't we allowed to look disappointed, by the way? Like, that's another topic, but why are we not allowed to do that? Oh, for fuck's sake.
It's really difficult because sometimes, do you not find in that moment when they've announced someone else's name and you're like, okay, you're happy for that person because, as you know, we're a very small industry. 9 times out of 10, that person is probably your friend. So you're actually quite happy for them. But you're mourning the months of training and grueling work you put your body through. And this is what I mean, is that if I went and I didn't want to win, I would never have bothered putting my body through the amount of work that I did. Do you know what? People always say this to me, and I fully agree with it. people always say, like, you're never going to work as hard for a showcase as you do for a competition. And it is so true, isn't it? You never put the same amount of effort in because you know that at a competition, the stakes are a little bit higher. And also, there's such a pressure, and again, kind of separate subject here, but I feel there is such a pressure on people like you, me. It's like Jazzy K, for example. You know, I'm glad for her that she did win because she was in a group of people who were a little bit less known, I would say. No shade. They're all lovely as well. But she was probably the most famous person in her category. So,
and that's, can I just say, that's another topic, because being famous in the pole world is now down to how many Instagram followers you have.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about that as well later, for sure. We're going to be here for hours.
Welcome to an 8-hour podcast.
but it's, you know, it's there's so much pressure on us to do well, and it's like, oh, I hate that pressure. I hate it so much because, you know, it's such a horrible and unnecessary pressure that people give on to us because they're like, oh, well, you know, it's because I have to say, I did it as well because I watched it. I was like, well, we know Jazzy's going to win. You know, of course she's going to win. Jazzy will win this. You know, she's and that's just a projection that I've done because she is the most well-known polar up there. And I'm like, I shouldn't really be thinking that way. And actually, it's unfair of me to do that to her because that's such a pressure for Jazzy to be like, oh, fuck, everyone thinks I'm going to win. What if I don't win? You know, and we all make mistakes on stage. Oh, God, we all make mistakes, don't we?
God, have you ever done a routine that's gone perfectly?
So, again, I'm not being big-headed here. I've only had like 1 or 2 competitions where I've made mistakes, and that's only because I drill my competition routines so much so that they've got to be perfect.
Even when I mean, like, have they gone exactly how you wanted them to? Even to the respect of, like, oh, I'm suddenly looking at a slightly different angle.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you meant like actual slips or something.
No.
Yeah, I literally, in the whole time I've competed, I've probably slipped or just missed something or whatever, maybe once, or maybe even twice. I only ever think of one. It's UKPPC. But, all the time. Like, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I didn't hold that as long as I did in run throughs, but it's fine. But yeah, it never goes exactly how you envision it, does it? But that's just the whole thing of competing. But I do agree with you. So actually, it's really funny. Although it sounds like we disagree, we actually do agree because, like you said, the dream for you is that you'd love to win. It'd be so nice to win. But you also, the only difference I would say is that you also go with the mindset of, but I know I won't win, but I would love to win. Whereas when I train people, I always say to them, like, you shouldn't ever think like that because you don't know that. We don't know that. And that's the truth. You don't know that. See, in my head, when you said about going to IBC, I think, well, actually, I've seen Annie when she trains at her hardest and some of the fucking crazy tricks you can do, like that cartwheel and stuff. I know I'm talking about it again, but that is a
I remember you said to
trick.
me after UKPPC, you were like, I'd never, like, or not you
I would
wouldn't.
never.
You told me another polar that you had worked with that trick, and you were like, and they were really scared of it. And I was like, oh, I was never scared of that one.
But that trick, I remember seeing you do it, and I remember thinking, fuck, she's so brave. I would never do that on stage.
But it's,
oh my
it's
God.
interesting because that's kudos to you because the way you taught me. Because you weren't like, oh, I'm going to teach this really scary thing. You're like, right, we're going to do this. Then you've got to do it a bit higher. And wouldn't it be cool if you did it up the pole? So you had trained me without the fear. You weren't showing me the fear of the move. So I didn't know there was anything to be scared of. So, yeah.
Well, I'm telling you now. But well, I mean, it's one of those things. Different people are confident with different tricks, aren't they? But I digress. In my head, I'm like, you could easily have gone there and... But as well, little things like, okay, maybe you might not have taken the win home. You might have taken another title home. Because at some comps, there's loads of different ones, right? You get like the artistic winner, you get this win. Because that one was a weird one. I remember thinking, isn't there like an artistic winner, a tricks winner? And
then
is that
an
like
ultimate.
comp?
Yeah.
Right. So in my head, I'm like, you just don't know, you might have taken one of those home. And it's one of those things, like, especially with pole now more so than ever, I think actually it's anyone's game because you're normally on stage with a group of very good performers. It's very rare nowadays that you're going to be on stage with someone who's so bad compared to everyone else. Do you know what I mean? Normally everyone is roughly at the right level. So it could be anyone's game. And And I know we're going to talk about it in a minute because it's one of the things that we wanted to discuss was exotic generation.
Which I was just going to say one tiny little thing there. I think this is where, even though I started off in my post talking about you and what you said, it's actually, when I reread it after we chatted about it, we are actually saying slightly different things. So, you know, you're saying go into the mindset that you want to win.
Yeah.
I started off by saying, we don't need to do that. But my post was about the winning isn't necessarily the best thing to take away from a comp. And that feels so wrong to say it. And it feels really, really wrong when you're there. But I am just going to talk about my Dance Filthy piece. The first time I entered Dance Filthy, I wanted to win.
Was that the one where you had all the people on stage with you?
No, that was Pole Theatre. No, I did a piece about female ejaculation. So it was, you know, obviously.
Wait, wasn't it called something? Didn't you called your vagina something? I can't remember what it, oh my God, why can I remember bits of this?
that was the one that I did win. That was clitoris, I think you're thinking
Clitoris?
of. Yeah,
oh my God,
I was a superhero. That's a different thing. No, the one about squirting is where it was all about female masturbation, touching yourself, enjoying the fact that people are watching you, knowing you're sexy, and then at the end I spat on myself and it all squirted everywhere. Anyway, I was really I'm sure my parents are really proud of that piece. They are, actually. I was really proud of that piece and I wanted to win so bad. So bad.
Did you win?
I did not win.
You didn't? Which comp was it, sorry?
Dance Filthy 2018. And
okay.
I didn't win. I remember, this is really bad, and I don't even know if I should say this, but I think it is kind of important for people to know this.
No, it is. Keep going.
I cried my eyes out in the hotel room. I was distraught. I was like, I'm not going to pole again. I'm shit. I'm so shit. I've embarrassed myself. I don't even know why these thoughts come into my head, because the next morning I was like, oh no, I was quite good. I enjoyed myself. But I just felt really embarrassed because I'd gone into the mindset. I'd gone in being like, I could win. I really, really want to win. And it made the fall much harder. But what's really interesting is that piece is one of my most well-known pieces. Everyone says to me, oh, when you drank the water and you spat on yourself and all the things. And I'm like, didn't even win. And it's,
And that is a really good point as well. And I agree with you. And I think this is why I say as well, maybe I didn't word it sensitively enough to be like, you got to want to win, but it can't be the be all and end all for you. It's because if you don't win, you also, like you said, you don't want that disappointment. And whether you go in to win or not, it's going to be disappointing either way, because we always have, even sometimes when you win, again, I'm really intrigued
just
to hear
going to say
this.
Yeah.
You have that post-comp come down still. You still have a come down, and I fucking won. And I'm like, why do I feel so shit? But it's because you've lived a certain way for so long, especially when you're training at elite level. We've got so much more training to do because we have to really build our fitness up. We have to be really pushing our bodies.
I know. Can I just say, why does elite level have to be 5 minutes? This is what I liked about IPC. It was 3 minutes. It was 3 minutes all round. 5 minutes is too long.
It's too. Yeah, we don't have to do 5 minutes though, do you? You can do between 3 and 5, isn't it?
Oh, is that for the elite comp? Yeah, but so many comps are 5 minutes for.
So it's like Miss Pole Dance, isn't it?
Yeah, that used to be 8 minutes. I swear.
No, Miss Pole Dance. It used to have to be between 4 minutes. Yeah, 4 and 5. Yeah, because I know you could go to 5. Because I always remember Jess Leanne Norris, God rest her soul. She used to always use the full 5 minutes, and I used to be like, Jess, how do you do this? How do you go for so long? Bless her. Yeah. But yeah, it's, sorry, again, got totally sidetracked. But yeah, I do agree with you as well. It's that whole thing of, you don't want to build it up too much. You've got to go and you've got to want to really try your hardest to be the best person that you can be, and potentially the best in that group on the day. But like you said, again, you're right. It's a really good point. It's so important that you don't build yourself up too much. I don't think I've ever cried, but I think I've probably gotten close.
So
do you know what I mean?
I think, to round that section up, we're both saying, go in to be the best you can be. Go in with the mindset that you have as much chance as anyone else. But I think the only thing we will always disagree on is if I had a student that came to me and said, I want to enter this comp because I want to do this piece. I know it's not going to hit any of the judging criteria at all, so therefore I can't win, but I really want to do it. and there is no showcase stage available for me for 6, 12, 8 months, I don't know, do you think I should enter? I would say yes. Let's do it. Let's make you happy.
But let me tell you just why I would say no.
Yeah.
And the only reason I say this is because I think it's unfair to the people who want to go, who do want to compete and actually want to compete against the other people and be like, I really want to win something here.
Yeah, but it's no skin off their nose, because if they're good enough to get through the video heat to get to the final, then they were slightly deserving of it anyway, like you said. And then if they don't get through the video heat, it doesn't matter. There's normally unlimited.
I just think, have you ever been right, I want to give you an example, because I've seen so many people do this at competitions before. When people go to competitions and they pretend that they're not there to win, and they're like, oh, I'm just here to, showcase what I can do. I'm really nervous. Oh, my routine's really shit. I haven't trained. I've not done blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I hate all that, yeah.
And then they announce their name and they're like, me? Oh
yeah,
my God, me? I'm like, babes, come on. We knew you wanted to fucking win this whole time. And it's that whole thing of like, don't pretend you went there not wanting to win. There's nothing wrong, and I stand by this. There's nothing wrong with being competitive. It's a competition.
I completely agree.
Don't get me wrong. There's nice ways to be competitive.
Yeah.
Like some people can be really mean competitive, like when they're in the backstage room and they don't want to talk to anyone, and like they can be really funny, or they might say mean things because they're in that horrible, I don't know, I don't like that. But it's okay to go and be like, oh, I'm going to really try my hardest here because I'd love to win. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't know why so many people almost try to think, I feel that's why they say these things, is because they feel like if they say, oh, do you know what? I've worked really hard the last 3 months. I've really pushed myself. I'd really love to do well here today. I don't think there's anything wrong in saying
there
that.
Isn't,
do
but
you?
The problem is in this industry, well, not this industry, sorry, it is in a lot of industries.
Of course.
Is that if you say, I've worked really, really hard, I would love to win. I've obviously got no idea what anyone else is going to do, but I'm just going to do my absolute best. That shows your vulnerability. And people don't like doing that. Because there are a lot of haters in the world. So if you are really raw and you put out there, like, I'd love to win this, and you don't win, there'll be people out there like, she wanted to win and she didn't.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
and that's why people don't do it. It's because they're not just there. There'll be many other reasons, but that is one reason.
Oh, but that's just life, isn't it? Do you know what? I think about things like that all the time. I tried doing a little feature on my Instagram just to see how it went, called the Daily D. It just died a death. I just thought, oh, do you know what? I don't enjoy doing it anymore. It's not really getting the engagement you used to get, so I stopped. I don't think of it as a failure. I think, well, sometimes you got to try things. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes they work. Sometimes they don't. That's just life.
So this is again, we're going to circle back slightly, but my mantra for myself is why I have never failed in my life, which I know loads of people say it's important to fail, blah, 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 blah. It's not important to fail. It's important to learn. That's what the most important thing is. So
Correct.
I have never failed because I have put a limit on what fail and success is. So for me, if I was doing the Daily D and it didn't work out, my goal was to try and put something new out there, not for it to be successful. And this is the problem with success as well. Unless your goal was each video needs 50,000 views and 20 comments, you're always going to feel like you fail anyway. So it's all mindset always. You've just got to put your boundaries on what you're doing. And you know what, like if my studio had to close tomorrow, I've not failed. I've succeeded. I've had a studio for 18 years. I've been the top of my game. It's been fantastic. So I think if you can just put these markers on what you believe in, it will help you. And so I'm not trying to say to anyone, so this is why that's why I say, if you put your marker on you want to win, you are going to fail. If you put your marker on as you want to do the very best you can, you're not going to fail. You can learn, you can read that feedback, you can get yourself better, and you can learn.
But as well, actually, after Exotic Generation, I actually do it after a lot of the big comps. I always post and be like, hey, this is just your friendly reminder that if you didn't get a result that you wanted, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you're a loser. You know, you didn't lose anything. You just didn't win. That was all.
The other thing, just while we're talking about, the other thing I think can be a little bit disrespectful, and I think we all do agree on this, is so
I know what you're going to say.
When I said, like, for example, I didn't win Dance Filthy and I was gutted, by no means did I feel like I should have won. I think the girl who beat me, her piece hit the judging criteria. She was better on the night. She did the thing. She brought the energy. Mine was not right for the comp, and that's okay. Don't sit there saying you should have won.
Yeah.
Is that
I think
what you
it's
were
really
going to...
rude when people say that, and I thought you were going to say something else, which I'm also going to mention. I want to know your thoughts on it. When people say, oh, you know, you were robbed. And actually, do you know what? I will say, I actually messaged Jade Benson after this because I was like, Jade, I've definitely messaged you saying that before. But then when I saw someone post about it, I was like, oh, actually, God, that's really rude.
Yeah.
I should never have said that. And so actually, I wouldn't say that now. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I will look and be like, I don't agree with it, but good for them.
But this is where, again, we could do another whole podcast on this, Dan, because this is where it's like, just because you're the audience's favourite, people could love you because you had the stage presence, you had the crowd pleasers, but you didn't hit the criteria.
Correct.
And this is also sometimes why it's important to have really good experienced judging panel so that the judges have maybe been through a briefing with a comp organiser so that they know exactly what they're doing and what each section means to mark, rather than just trying to guess and put down marks to make sure that the best winner did win. The best person did win, sorry.
I had the one I thought you were also going to add in there. What was that? And then another one, I actually had a Tuesday topic about this, but it was a long time ago, so I'm going to mention it now. What are your thoughts on winners who will win and then they'll post a video and be like, oh, you know, here's my winning routine. It wasn't my best run.
Hate that.
You know, and I just think that's so disrespectful to the people that you beat, because it's like saying, I beat you and this was my shit run through. God, you must have really sucked. It's like rubbing salt in a wound.
Yeah, and I also don't like it when people come second and third and do that, because that's like saying, if I was on the top of my game, I would have beaten you.
I would have won, yeah.
I just think like, but then again, on the other hand, their personal social media, they can do what they want. But yeah, you have to be a little bit gracious. When it comes to a comp, I feel like there is some etiquette that people should follow, and I agree.
I think that I don't ever think anyone I've ever seen do that, by the way, I'm just going to put it out there, I don't ever think anyone's done that maliciously. Never have I ever read something like that and thought, oh, they're trying to really hit the person who came second, third. No way. Yeah. What I'm saying is that by writing it, they've not been considerate to be like, oh, actually, that probably would make the people who didn't win feel really shit.
Yeah.
The same way that the people who came third, fourth, fifth and said, oh, I messed up, so really sad because I probably would have done better. It kind of makes the people above you think, well, you know, maybe I'm not as good. Maybe maybe I had a lucky day because that person is really good and they just messed up.
But you've judged a lot of competitions, Dan, and you will know, is the same as me, like, it's very rare that someone doesn't win because they've slipped or they've messed up a little bit. Like, that isn't usually why they haven't won. Like, that you can have someone very, very good that makes mistakes and they'll still still win mistake and still win because they were that exceptional. Not always.
I found that more back in the day, and I only say that because I find nowadays the caliber of, is that my word? Like the level of students and instructors, whatever, that are entering these competitions is so high that sometimes, that's why I always say in my post as well, I'm always like, you can be in a category of winners sometimes. And we're about to talk about Amy in a minute. Yeah. And she was in a category of winners. In her competition, I thought there was 3 of them that had potential to win. So it's that whole thing of like, when you've got 3 people who could potentially take the win, sometimes the slip is the only thing they have to go on. So if you slipped and so-and-so didn't slip, sometimes it can hold you back. But if you stood so far out from the crowd, but you did have a little slip, you're right. It doesn't matter.
Can I just say, how many people were in her category?
It was the busiest one. Okay, tell you what, let's move on to this. So
I was just going to say, because if you said it was 5, then judging by what you said earlier, then there were 5 potential winners.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Sorry, I'm only taking the piss.
yeah, no, 100%. You're right, though. But if I'm being honest, I didn't watch all of them. So, but you're right.
Fair,
But they were
fair.
all so good. The three that I did see, that all three of them could have won.
Cool.
I saw Suki, Amy, and I saw Jazzy. But I have to say, all three of them were completely different.
But go on. Yes,
And I remember
sorry.
watching those because I had a stall there, so I was kind of in and out. And even just the bits that I saw was like the level was high for that category. Like there were some really good people, and to be honest, the level was high actually for the whole competition. But as well, sometimes when I watch from as an outsider, I could say, oh, I think these three people will win. And sometimes none of those three will win because I've not looked at the judging criteria.
Exactly.
So that's another thing. But we have a lovely friend called Amy who was in Exotic Generation. She was going to join us today, but she can't. She's got other things going on.
Amy the mermaid.
Amy the Mermaid, you can look her up on Instagram. She is amazing. And she is really, I mean, I would say she's really like pushing the boundaries when it comes to the aesthetics of, you know, kind of the Exotic Generation styles. And she doesn't really fit into a category. What is your thoughts? What is your thoughts on picking a category? Like, what category out of interest would you put yourself in? Old school?
Okay, so before I start, I just want to say that any views that I have on Exotic Generation, I wasn't actually there. So I watched all of it via sort of Instagram stories and things like that. So I just want people to bear that in mind that I wasn't actually at the venue and didn't see the stuff because I don't want to be chatting shit.
Yeah, and of course, and I'm going to put it out there now that this is absolutely not chatting shit about the competition.
Oh,
it
no,
was
no,
such
no,
a great
no.
competition. Like, I'm actually even considering that I might want to enter it next year because it was so good.
It was.
So it's not really about that. It's not really about the competition as such. It's more just about, as using it as an example for all comps.
Yes.
But yeah, sorry, carry on. What category would you do? Because can we just let everyone know what categories are? So they have Exotic Generation. They've got Exotic Flow, Exotic Hard, Exotic Old School Style, and Exotic Theatre. So Flow, obviously, is more flowy style. Hard is kind of like the kips, the faster style, the harder kind of style. You've got Old School Style, which is more, I would describe as stripper style. Would you agree? And then you've got theatre, which is exactly what it says on the tin. It's
toxic
dramatic.
Cherry.
It's toxic cherry, bottled up and put into a category, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, what category would you do?
I feel like I have been put in the old school category by people, and I'm happy with that. I feel like I could do any of them if I tried, but naturally, maybe old school. Yeah, I like touching myself, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and that's absolutely fine, and you're entitled to touch yourself.
Thanks, Dan.
But so Amy made a post about, you know, because I saw a few posts from Amy about, what would you describe my style as? Now, as an outsider looking in on the day, I have to say when I watched her, I was mesmerised because her style is just so different, isn't it? It's just like
wild.
It's wild. I love it.
Yeah.
And I have seen it before. I saw it on a guy before, and it just really challenges the boundaries of what we consider, you know, exotic to be. Oh, by the way, everyone, I don't normally use the word exotic. I'm using it purely because we're talking about Exotic Generation here. I don't normally use that word. If you want to find out more about that and why we don't really use that word anymore, please DM me. I'll send you some sources of why we don't. But anyway, she really pushes the boundaries in that style and that category for me. Yeah. But I have to say I would have put her in hard. For me personally, because she was doing a lot of kind of cool, like, I don't know, it just, when I watched the hard category, it kind of looked a bit more like what she was doing. But actually, I wouldn't really put her in any of the categories because she's very, very different. Now, what's your opinion? I mean, what would you tell someone like Amy to do if she wanted to compete?
So, I'm just going to tell you, a brief chat me and her had. So the Monday after Exotic Generation, like, I don't know her that well, but I know her well enough to sort of voice note her and have a little chat here and there about different things. And I just said, hey babe, I've got no idea how you're feeling after the comp, but I hope you're on a massive high. You are going to make waves in the industry. I think it was absolutely fucking amazing what you did on stage. It was so different, And she messaged back saying she was feeling a little deflated.
She said the same to me.
Right. And I just said to her, I was like, but you, like, everyone is talking about you. Everyone. So you have to decide now, when you enter a competition, and I know this is where we'll slightly disagree, do you want to win?
No, I do agree with this point. Sorry,
Okay.
I do agree with what you're going to say, because you were about to talk about, and this is actually something we did mention earlier and we didn't really touch on it very much. You're about to talk about what are people going to remember you for? Carry on.
Yeah. So, like, do you want to win? Or do you want to go on and make waves and be remembered? Sometimes you can do both,
please?
You absolutely can. Sometimes you can do
I want both.
Yeah, and because I feel like I was saying, I've said this a lot, like, oh, you know, you can only pick one, blah, blah. No, of course you can do both. I'm not saying that everyone that's won a comp isn't the audience's favourite, because quite often they are as well. But I was just saying to her, with I don't know the criteria for Exotic Generation, but I know she's got another comp coming up, and she was saying to me, like, oh my God, I'm not put a portion of tricks in there. And I was like, you probably won't win then, because there is, I don't know, 10, 20 marks, I can't remember their judging criteria, for tricks. And if you don't have any tricks, you are behind everyone else in that respect with marks. So that's fine. Still go on that stage, still get yourself seen, because you deserve to be in the final. But just bear that in mind going in. If Dan was speaking to her, she would say, get up the fucking pole. He would say, get up the fucking pole. You need to do some tricks, hit that judging criteria. I'm joking.
Yeah,
but
I would have been like, well, I would have literally said to her at that point, I've been like, right, you've got two choices here. You can either go knowing that your routine isn't going to hit the marks, or you can change it. That's your two choices.
Yeah, and that's what I've said
If
to
you'd
her,
like a chance of winning, you can change your routine. But if you're not bothered, then don't change it. But carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's that. So I feel like Amy should have been in either flow or theatre for Exotic Generation. I felt like her piece flowed beautifully. I personally think, and I'm sorry if this offends some people, I personally think that sometimes the pole industry gets really narrow-minded, and they're like, okay, this is flow. On the tip of your shoe, you must extend your line this way, and you must float from this move to that move, blah, blah, blah. Rather than being like, oh, look at Amy, she still flowed beautifully. It's just in a completely different way that I was expecting, but it still flowed from A to B. I haven't watched the whole thing though, so just, seen clips of it. But I'm just saying, as an example, I think sometimes, like Old School, for example, this is really classic. The way I used to dance in the strip clubs, and I've just sort of outed myself, not everyone knows that that's what I used to do, but the way I used to dance in the strip clubs is nowhere near how I used to dance now. I used to not point my feet, like hardly ever wear heels because I didn't like them. Like, it just wasn't me. Yet technically that was old school because it was however many years ago in a strip club. But we're told now as an industry, no, this is old school. If you want to dance like a stripper, it has to be this way. So I feel like there's just room to be a little bit more open. There we go.
Yeah.
Off my soapbox.
I think, I agree with what you're saying. Do you know what? I think with all of these things, it's all down to interpretation. There's you could go down so many little paths on these, like, oh, I don't think flow has to look like this, or some people will be like, well, I think it does. And this is why the conversation like this is so fun, because it really is down to your own interpretation. Like,
Do you know
like
what,
you said,
though? Sorry, I'm really passionate about
No, go
this.
on.
Like, the thing that really is getting to me with when I coach a lot of people through competitions that I don't say on my Instagram who they are, but come to me, and they're getting feedback like, oh, your hip circles need to be bigger. No, they don't. That's the way she's moving. There's no, as long as it's not dangerous, that's her aesthetic. And you can't say to look sexy, someone has to move in with a bigger movement or a smaller movement.
But you got to remember, right, that this is actually one of the reasons I stopped judging, is because that was just that one judge's opinion. She's not that judge wasn't. I see. That's the way I interpret it. So, say for example, a judge said to me, "Your hip circles need to be bigger." Mm-hmm. I take that as my hip circles need to be bigger for you to find it aesthetically pleasing enough for you.
Right,
not for everyone who's sat behind you.
We shouldn't have to do that. Like, as a judge, we should sit there and think, oh, I don't like it when people do small hip circles. Like, I really like it when people touch their body with intention, when they grab pieces of their flesh and they really look like they're enjoying themselves. However, when someone's on stage in a competition and they're not touching themselves like that and they're doing something delicate, I still appreciate it, and it's not wrong. It's just, as a judge, I shouldn't be telling people they need to do things the way I like it. I should
But then what are they judging it based on? Do you know what I mean? Because judging has got to be subjective to what you actually like, because we're not judging based on points here. We're judging based on, like, they'll literally sometimes just say presentation 10 out of 10. I'll be like, well, I look at them and I think, well, their costume's really nice. I think it's nice. But that's like me saying, well, you know, but actually loads of the other judges don't think it's nice. So should I be judging it based... Do you get where I'm trying to go with that?
I do. And I don't know. I think the problem is that people... It is subjective, and that's great. And that is also why I love polls so much. However, if someone... Okay, I'm going to go with Lauren Red. She dances to music that I detest. I cannot stand that type of music.
Oh, I love her rock songs.
However, I can appreciate her energy matches the song. I can appreciate she dances so well to it with her musicality, and she puts on a show. So it's subjective, but also a little bit far removed, that I can still see if there's something I don't like, it's still good. And going back to Amy, I have no idea what the judges have said. I've got no idea. But going back to someone like Amy, I fucking hope those judges were like, this is amazing. You've pushed boundaries. Your movement quality is beautiful. Didn't hit the marks for the actual comp.
Yeah, I think, and to be fair, I do think that's what it is, because I think a lot of the judges looked really impressed when she was on stage. Like, everyone was just like mesmerized by what she was doing.
But does that make sense? Actually, what I mean about that?
I kind of, when you said about theatre, actually, I kind of wish she had done theatre, and I wish that she dressed as a snake, because she was doing these like rattling things with her feet.
Oh my God,
and a rattlesnake, it would have been amazing. Such a
Amy, we've got your next piece.
Amy, your next piece is a rattlesnake.
Dan and Annie are going to coach you.
But yeah, like, no, I do. I think the problem with judging, and this is actually the reason I stopped, is little things like someone actually wrote on someone's feedback. Oh, someone posted the other day. Who was it? They got told. Someone got told. They were asked why. They wish that they weren't wearing knee pads. I don't know who it was. Someone posted that. Who was
me?
Was it
and
you?
Also Marilena. We've both
Marilena. That's who I saw. Yes. Now I find that a really odd comment, because I think about myself and I think, could I do this without knee pads? And 99% of the time, even just my own choreos, my students, no, my knees are so sensitive.
Yeah.
But I've also danced with people like Aliona Amber. She never danced in knee pads. She always just does it on her knees. She's so hardcore. But that is just her. You know, she's one of very few people. But it's also one of those things where it's that whole thing of like, okay, but that's just what that one judge thinks. And they're just giving their own personal opinion.
But it shouldn't be personal. It should be subjective, but not too personal.
Do you not think? But I think it has to be, because otherwise, then what are they judging it on? Because
then I should mark Lauren Red down, because I don't like her song choice.
But you probably, without even realizing it, you probably are. So that, and this is another opinion I have, is that, let's say, for example, and this is a different subject, so I don't want to get too much into it. But you know, when sometimes people judge people they know.
Yep.
It's so hard to be subjective. You say you're being subjective.
It is hard.
But if you've trained them, of course you're going to rate it highly. You've freaking made it.
I do the opposite. My poor students, if I've ever judged them, they come back and they're like, Annie, they all gave me 9, you gave me 6. And I was like, yeah, sorry, it wasn't as good.
But what I mean is that it's the whole, like, it's the whole little thing of like, you know that routine is going to be aesthetically pleasing to you because you help make it. Now, don't get me wrong, you're going to be strict if they mess things up, of course, and you're probably going to be quite harsh because you feel like you have to be. But again, it's that whole thing of like, we as pole dancers have to judge it based on what we see. And I'm literally like, so when someone comes on stage and I see, you know, things like lines, if they're being judged on lines, well, either the lines were straight or they weren't. Easy marks. That's super easy. Yeah. When it's like performance, you know, if they were doing a sad routine and I felt personally like it was quite sad, I might give it hard marks. Do you know, I might give it high marks because I'd be like, well, actually, I thought it was really, really sad and like quite emotive.
Yeah.
But then actually the judge next to me might be like, I didn't think she was emotive enough at all. But that's just their opinion. But obviously they're going to mark it based on that because they didn't feel like it was emotive at all. But do you see what I mean? It's like, how do we...
But I'm also... So, like, I'll be honest, like, I don't think I really, really try and be as even as possible. So if someone dances to rock, I'm like, that's fine. As long as they're hitting beats and they're matching the energy, it's fine.
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes I might be slightly more harsh if they dance to one of my favourite songs, because I've listened to that song over and over again. I know all the layers. I know which bits they should be hitting, or maybe some bits they might choose, should I say. But I do think we're both right. I'm not just trying to
No, I love it. Keep going.
I do think we're both right, but I do think too many judges out there are getting to the point now where they're like, things should be done this way, and they're not open to interpretation. Like, when I'm teaching people, I always say, as long as you're safe, the aesthetics is down to you. I can help you make it look nicer, and if you ever want to win a comp, I'm suggesting you do this, this, and this. But if we keep saying to people, this is how it's done, we're limiting the growth of the industry, of how people move. Like, look at Yvonne Smink. Look at her. When she first started doing what she's doing, I bet there were people out there, I don't know, but I bet there were people that looked at her and was like, oh, that's not very nice.
I bet there's still people that say it now.
There's probably still people that say it now, yeah. But look at her. She is another level. She is art on the pole. She is. And it's important to push these things. And I just think it's a shame. Like I said, I hope, for example, with Amy's piece, the judges were like, even if it was like, oh my God, I didn't like that because that pushed my boundaries, hopefully they recognise that's why they didn't like it, or that it didn't fit the criteria, for example.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's such a difficult one, like with the whole judging thing and like it being down to interpretation. You know, I think, like I said, if a song comes on that you hate, even though obviously we try to always judge subjectively, subconsciously, I wonder subconsciously whether it does make you enjoy the routine less because you're listening to the song that you fucking hate. Do you know what I mean?
What, though?
And the same way with a song that you listen to and you're like, oh, I love this song. And you're like, oh, okay. And then they start doing a nice routine and then you're like, oh, I really like the way this is. It kind of makes you feel good. So then you're like, oh, this made me feel good. So I really liked this. Do you know what I mean?
But I say that
there has to be a correlation there.
There was these doubles at Miss Pole a few years ago, and they danced to, I think it was Roxanne. Now that song, every time it goes on, I'm like, oh,
Roxanne. Yeah. Oh no.
But they were fucking amazing. They picked up on all the nuances of the song. Their musicality was amazing. I just think, like you say, I agree. You can't help but maybe do some of the things you're saying. But hopefully judges out there try and recognise these things, that like, okay, I hate this song. Come on, let's watch this with an open mind. Let's see what they do with it. Or like, oh my God, I hate it when people flex their feet in contemporary moves, but I'm going to deal with it. Does it fit with the piece? Does it work even if I don't like it? I just hope, and I sometimes feel like judges maybe, I don't know, I'm not having a go at anyone, but like, I just wonder sometimes if judges just picked and thrown in, the judging criteria isn't explained to them. They're not even told that, you know, this isn't like if you enjoyed it, it's if you think it's good for the competition. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. This is why I think if you want to be judged super fairly, pole sports competitions are great for you, because it's marked based on being told to do exactly what you've got to do. If you do exactly what you've been told to do, you're going to get the exact mark you're supposed to get, and you will win. Do you know what I mean? Whereas with comps like these, it is down to interpretation, because we don't have that type of scoring system, and there's no way to score it, because how are you going to score, you know, Jazzy K against Amy the Mermaid? They were two completely different routines. It's really tough. I mean, and it's funny because I messaged Amy and I said to her, I was like, you got to ask yourself, like, you know, why do you want to know kind of what category you want to be in? Because like you said, there's that whole thing of like, it's exposure for you, you know, people are going to be talking about your routine anyway, whether you win or not. Yeah. And then you've got to ask yourself and be like, what do I want the end goal to be? Now, again, you are most likely going to, oh, really? Okay, fine. And that's really funny. I think you're going to disagree with this, because I don't know if you're going to say similar to what I'm about to say, but I always say to people, I'm like, what do you want to achieve from this competition? Do you want to be teaching workshops? Do you want to be doing all this? Because, honey, if you want to be teaching workshops, the competition stage is the wrong place. Get this shit that you're doing on stage on social media so people can share that shit. Because that's how I get workshops. No one books me now for workshops based on competitions. This is why I don't really bother putting myself through the hell of competitions as much anymore, because I'm just like, I don't need it for my work. Back in the day, though, and you will stick by me on this, I know, because I've told this to other people and they've been like, oh, really? Is that what it was like? But back when I first started, the only way we got known was through competitions, because social media wasn't as big back when I first started competing, and now it's massive. You know, so people were sharing like the YouTube videos of winners of competitions. So I just said to her, it depends what you want. She was like, well, I would like to win. She's like, but obviously, you know, she has other goals. But, you know, if you want to go and teach workshops and stuff, really the competition scene isn't the place for it. Like Jazzy K didn't compete because she wants to teach workshops. She's already teaching them. She did it for her own, of course. She's doing it for her own, you know, her own challenges and stuff. She wants to challenge herself, and good for her. And it's, I don't know. I mean, what's your views on that?
I completely agree. It's the same with when people say to me, like, oh, I just want like loads of Instagram followers. I'm like, why? And what's loads? Oh. Like, what is loads? Is loads 2,000? Is loads 20,000? Like, where is your limit? Is that 200,000? Like, that's the same.
And what do you want them for?
Why do you want them?
What is it for?
What are you selling? What are you, like,
See, I always say to people, I've got a lot of followers, right? For a male pole dancer, I've got quite a lot, you know. Really proud of it. I've worked hard for the following.
For a pole dancer?
And then, like, well, for anyone, really.
For anyone, yeah.
But, like, it's one of those things. People always say to me, oh, what, you don't need that many followers. Like, why do you need so many followers? And it's like, well, actually, I sell a lot of things online. People find out about my workshops online. People buy Polo's products online. I've got my podcast on here. So actually, the reason why following is important for me is because it's my livelihood. Now, for Lisa, who goes to pole class and has a full-time job and a family, and she's living a life, like, it sounds funny, but sometimes I would rather trade my life now for that life. The 9-to-5 good job, family, kids, weekends to herself, you know, rather than having to be posting every day on social media and doing all that sort of stuff. I sometimes look at people with that simpler life and think, wow, that looks so relaxing.
You know, when people say to you, like, I've just come off social media and it's the best thing, and I'm like, I can't.
I can't. Genuinely, I can't.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well. Like, I don't have a lot of followers. I have got just over 10,000 followers. But what I feel quite lucky is with my followers, I've got really good interaction. And when I sell anything online, I get a lot of buyers and a lot of interest. So at least my strippers link classes that I did online over lockdown, I had loads of people every week. Right. And I was like, okay, because before I was like, I want more followers. And I was that person, like, I just want more followers. And then I was like, why? And then I was like, right, okay, I'll start selling stuff online. And I realized my quality of followers, I guess, was really good. And I made loads of friends as well.
Do you know what's funny is that actually sometimes I'll see a lot of big name polers. I'm not going to say any because it's not meant to be like rude or anything. Yeah, it's just like big name polers, like who have got a large percentage of men, pervy men, following them.
Yeah,
and I'd rather have 98,000 followers who are all pole dancers who are actively maybe interested in what I have to offer to them, rather than 150 where 60,000 of them are just men watching me dance. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of people who do follow me tend to engage with my stuff. They're saving my stuff. They're writing to me. So it's really nice. And like you said, you know, my online platform and stuff would be nothing without the amount of people that followed me. So I'm very, very lucky for it. But again, this is that whole thing. Like, if you want a big following and stuff, again, competitions ain't the place for it. You're not going to get loads of followers from one competition.
No, do you know what's really interesting? I get more followers from guest performing, and I know I'm lucky in the fact that I get asked to guest perform. I know that's why some people enter comps, because they do want to just perform, and I feel quite lucky that I get other platforms to do that on. I get way more followers every time I do a guest performance than when I've entered comps. Yeah.
Well, that's so funny. I've never really noticed the correlation between it, because I've never checked, but I wouldn't think you'd get really many at all from guest performing or competing, because Yeah, I don't know. The people who are there probably already follow you. And then it's like, who else is finding out about it? This is the thing. Like, can you tell me who won, like the last, I don't know, pole theatre? I don't even know. I can't
No, I don't
remember.
know. Oh God, I
That's what I
actually
mean.
don't know. Yeah.
It's that whole thing of like, I was going to say I was thinking
Hmm.
of what's the last competition that happened. It was Exhausted Generation. So I know because I was there. But
Yeah.
had I not been there, I probably wouldn't know who won. If I'm honest, I probably wouldn't have known. But back in the day, actually, I used to know everyone who won the competitions. I
Oh
remember
yeah.
like IPC and stuff. I used to be like, oh, who's won? Who's won? Like, why did I know? Because, it was a much smaller pole scene back
I don't
then.
know quite when you started and when this happened, but I remember the first time Felix Kane competed at Miss Pole Dance Australia,
Oh, yeah, I
and
was
it was.
after that.
Are you after that, right? It was like, I think it might have been MySpace or just when Facebook opened up. I can't really remember.
Was
And
that
it
the year
was
Deb was competing? Deb Riley.
no,
Did she compete that year?
I don't know, different comp.
Oh, not Miss Pole Dance.
Miss Pole Dance Australia because it was
Oh,
Felix Kane.
Miss Pole Dance Australia. Okay, yeah, of course Deb Riley wasn't in that. Can you imagine
She's
that?
in the UK. But like, yeah, so I just remember it blowing up on social media. Everyone was like, it can't have been Facebook, or maybe you couldn't upload videos back then or something. Everyone was like, oh my God, this new chick has come out. She's done this new move. And back then I was sort of like, well, kind of all moves have almost been invented. Lol. Like
LOL.
I would love to see if there was something really different, but we had to wait a full 24 hours before the video got uploaded to YouTube, and then we watched it. And I saw her do an eagle, and I was like, okay, because it was a really good eagle, but it was still just an eagle. I was like, that's not a new move. Then she banged out the spatchcock, and I was like, holy fuck, what is this? Never
Wow,
seen
yeah.
anything like it. But it was like, we knew, like, that was Australia, but it was this one comp, and we all waited for it to be on social media or YouTube,
Yeah.
should I say? Yeah,
It was a different world back then. It was completely different. I miss it a little bit actually, but we're just in a different industry now. But yeah, I find that with the Amy situation, going back to that,
yeah.
I would have to if I was Amy, I'd have to sit down and just be like, right, what do I actually want
What
from
do you
this?
want?
Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Because you gotta know what the end goal is. Like, are you doing it because you want to compete? Are you doing it because you want to raise awareness of who you are? Because if you are, you can do that a little bit through competitions, but I'd tell you to invest your time more in social media than on
so I'd
a
say like
competition.
that would be fine to enter the comps, but then don't be upset if you don't win, because you're not going in with like, oh, there's 10 marks for tricks, therefore I need to do a bit of paradise, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, that's okay, you're
Then
going in
don't you
there.
think that's really sad for people like her, who is just as good as any of the winners, but like we were discussing earlier, because she knows that her style doesn't fit into a box that we have
Yeah.
created, she can't win.
And
She knows what she can do to win, because obviously she's got the score sheet. So if she wanted to, she could create something, but it wouldn't be her. It wouldn't be her style. It wouldn't be her
and
style.
so
It'd be ticking
maybe
boxes.
again, that's where I sort of go back to. Maybe we should have judges that it sounds like I'm dissing judges. I'm not, because I'm one, but like, are a bit more open-minded. Like, okay, that was emotive for whatever reason. Like, it made me feel gross, it made me feel this, but it was still banging and great. And so therefore, just because the flow wasn't on the point and twiddling around the pole, technical term, it was still fluid on the floor and the movement linked. It was just a different type of flow. Or
Yeah.
maybe it should be a discussion point. Maybe, I don't know if I really mean this, but maybe the comp itself sits down and looks at their judging criteria and says, right, maybe next time we have a judges meeting and we explain this is sort of what we mean. I don't really
Maybe
know.
like some training or something. Yeah, like I had to do judges training for pole theatre.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, hey, babes. Sorry to interrupt. It's just me, real quick. Do you ever have times where you're sat at home and you're thinking, oh, I wish my shoulder mount was stronger, or I wish I could shoulder mount, or I wish I could do an invert, or I wish I was able to do an Iron X? Well, let me help you. Come over and give my online strength and conditioning program a try. This is a program you can do from the comfort of your own home. All you need is a pole and a rocking attitude, and you'll be able to take class with me. We do 3 live classes every week, and you can catch up on hundreds of videos which are already on the site. So make sure you check out the Pole Destroyers. See you there. So what's your thoughts? I have a lot of thoughts on this, and it's a really difficult one because I don't want it to be a call out to anyone because I know it's never intentional. But sometimes, you know, like when you're at a competition and then you'll see there'll be like a line of judges, and then a few of the people maybe competing are like very friendly with those judges, and then there might be like a group picture of them all together, and you just, as a competitor, it must be very hard to see the winner of your category having photos or being really friendly with the judging panel. But it also, I don't know that it's really the problem of the person who is friends with them, that they're friends with them. Do you know what I mean? Anyone could be friends with the judges, I guess, but it's sometimes, you know how it looks. What's your thoughts on that?
It's really difficult because I always kind of change my mind on this, actually. So I'll say what I think now, but maybe if we speak again next year. Yeah. Like, I think, again, you have judged me in a couple of competitions. We've sort of looked at each other, gone, hey, and that's it. I respect that day is not the time to go up to you and be like, hi, Dan, how are you? Selfie. Because also that can make everybody, people that don't know you personally, they might feel like, oh God, and then it can deflate them before they get on stage and put them in a certain mindset. And this is the whole podcast has kind of been on mindset, right? So I know, because some people are like, oh, it doesn't matter, talk to me anyway, because I'm still going to judge you the same. But it's almost not about the interaction that's happening. It's about other people. Sorry, that was the dog flapping their ears. It's about the people around you and how they perceive it, and then how it makes them feel. So I think it was a weird one. I judged Stacey Snedden at a comp the other day, and before she went on, like, a big respect for her. She just, when we walked past each other, she just dropped her eyes and looked the other way. And I just thought that's great, because I've known Stacey for years. She was not relying on, not that she would rely, but I think she didn't want anyone else to feel uncomfortable, that she knew the judging panel. She knew them all very well. So that's what I think. I think it's just a little bit of respect, a little bit of decorum.
I remember a long time ago, Pippa Loveridge. Do you remember Pippa?
Yep.
So she was judging a competition, and someone came up to the judges to say hi or something. And she was like, why are you speaking to the judges for? You haven't competed yet. She's like, go away. And like, in a nice way. But she was like, what are you doing? Like, you shouldn't be speaking to us. Like, go away. And I was like, oh, I remember thinking about that and thinking like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't think about that. And it was really about then that I kind of thought like, oh, wow, I didn't even think about little things like that, like how that could influence things. And I guess obviously it may or may not. But yeah, we're in an industry where it's so hard because we all know each other.
Yeah, I agree. I think someone was recently saying that judges you shouldn't let someone judge you if they've trained you or something. And I'm like,
it's almost impossible. That's why I stopped.
Yeah, it is almost impossible. And like, I feel like then that's kind of the fault of the comp. Don't have 3 judges. Do an IPAT. Have 8 or 10 judges and take away the lowest and highest score. Make it fair.
But then it's the cost of that. It's just so... Do you know, and I only say that because I've organised a competition before, and it's just... To have that many judges is so expensive. And it then just starts to eat into your budget. That's the only reason why I think lots of them don't do that. But it's... Yeah, I don't know. It is really difficult because you're right. So when we used to enter the Chrome, we used to always have 5 judges, and I think only 4 judged at a time, because one of them would be like performing normally. So they'd go backstage, they'd warm up during that category, and then they'd perform, then they'd come back and judge the next section. Now, I think the problem is that we try to then tie it in with, okay, look, you know, this judge has actually trained this person, so we're going to make their break at this point. But what if they've judged 2 people? What if they've trained 2 people? What if they've trained, you know, 1 person? Yeah, it's almost impossible to make it completely fair. But yeah, I don't know. It's a really tough one.
it's really hard, isn't it? Because people put blood, sweat and tears into comps, and, you know, sometimes the results are unfair for whatever reason, very rarely. And you just can't get away with it. Also, like, I have trained people to compete who I'm not very close to, who I don't have like a particularly personal relationship with. I've got students like that, and they go and win. And then I've got other people like, I don't know, I can't think of anyone. Jess Debank. Okay, so one of her last pieces, I didn't train her at all for that because I was on maternity leave, but I judged her, and she's like one of my best friends. So I was allowed to judge her because I didn't train her, but I almost have more loyalty to her because she's one of my best friends than some of my students who I've trained. And don't know, so like, where's your line? And then if your line is don't judge people that you know, then that's impossible, like you say. It's really hard.
So hard. Yeah, it is really difficult. I want to change the subject up just slightly, just because we did mention it at the beginning, and just because we're coming near to the end. So, we were talking about how we were both thinking about entering Elite Pole Championships. FYI, everyone, there's a new competition called Elite Pole Championships in the UK. It's basically going to be how UK PBC used to be. Shady bitch. But yeah, basically, it's going to be a competition for instructors, professional level, elite level, and then idols, which is going to be like the kind of like the big names. Now that's interesting. In fact, that was something we were going to talk about. What classes is a big name nowadays? Because there are people out there who've got loads of followers, and you're like, how have they made this name for themselves? But it's just because they're very good at branding themselves. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, for example, someone who I'm really friendly with, Becky Dunn. Do you know Becky?
Yep.
Literally, I was doing an interview with her the other day, and I didn't even realise she's got like over 80,000 followers now. She's created a brand for herself. She posts every day. We were talking about social media. She's good on social media.
She's amazing on social media.
So if you were to base it on following, I guess you could probably say that she was a pole idol, but would you put her in the pole idols category? No, because she's not really done anything like that. So it's really, I mean, what do you consider to be a pole idol?
I don't know, because the organiser of the comp, Stacey, she put a post out there to say, like, who are the UK's pole idols? And then what I found really interesting of that is people started posting OG polers, which is different to pole idols. Like, for example, I'm just trying to think of someone new. Oh my God, suddenly I can't think of anyone. We'll go with Jess Debank. She's new.
Yeah.
Like, I would class her as a pole idol. Loads of people look up to her.
Okay.
But she's not an old school, she's new, so maybe she wouldn't be put in the pole idol category. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think if they could define what they mean by pole idol, it'd be easier, but I don't think it needs to be.
I kind of took it as like people who were kind of maybe like teaching workshops internationally, maybe in the UK or like.
But why?
But like you said, but then like Jess Debank teaches workshops.
Yeah.
You know, so is she going to be asked to do pole idol?
She judges, she guest performs, she teaches workshops. So why would she not?
That's what I mean.
So it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really interesting actually, because, you know, I know people like Bendy, Kate, Charlotte and that lot have all been invited, and, you know, it makes me think like it'll be intriguing to see who ends up on the stage. Like, and
do you know what I think it means? I think pole idol to me means somebody that's created a movement brand for themselves that is known for their style.
Agreed.
I think.
Just like someone who's created a brand for themselves, I think it's just the perfect description of it. Someone who has really created a name for themselves in the industry rather than on social media. Yeah, that's kind of what I interpreted it as. I liked a lot of the suggestions on there. And honestly, God, I'd love to see some of the OGs doing it. But truthfully, like, I know none of them will. You know, people were tagging Donegan and Deb. Like, Deb Riley will no way bother with doing a competition. There's just no way she will. But
I wonder if Sally will.
Maybe. Who
Hope
knows?
so.
Maybe.
Can I just say, everyone, just so you know at the beginning when Dan said there's no beef between me and him, I sent him a message. I was like, thanks, babe, for tagging me on that post. And he was like, oh, shit, sorry, that was a typo. So there is beef.
But you are,
Just
no,
kidding.
but like, it's so funny because you are, for me, that's what I mean. This is why mindset is so important to talk about, because you talking about like, oh, thank you for tagging me. But for me, that's just such a like, well, for me, you are like, I've seen you compete and you're an OG, but you're one of the OGs that's really like, oh, how do I say this without offending people? I was literally just about to say it and then I was like, fuck. I don't mean it in a nasty way, like keeping up with the times. I don't mean it in a nasty way. Like you're keeping up with the big tricks. Like you always, like you were competing in elite category, while some of the other OGs you kind of left behind in not retirement, but they just chilled out a bit and they just decided that actually they enjoy running their studios. They want to chill now because they've done their time, you know. Whereas you were like, I ain't done yet, bitch.
I remember,
you know what I mean? You're like, I ain't done.
I don't even know if you remember this conversation, but it was Ms. Pole, and you said something like, you didn't say it like this, but you said something along the lines of like, when are you going to have kids and like fuck off or something like that. You didn't know that I was having trouble having kids at the time, which was even more funny. But like your point was like, yeah, you keep straggling on. You like,
go away.
You're still
you're
there,
like a bad smell.
Yeah, I am like a bad smell. I'm like, you thought I'd gone, even when I popped out a kid. I'm back.
But I like that because you are just constantly challenging yourself to be like, no, I'm going to keep up with you kids. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what it fucking feels like for me. It's what it feels like for me. I feel like these fucking young little shits are coming along and they're so amazing. You know, I'm watching people like Amy, like Esme.
Yeah.
Do you know Esme?
She's in iPad, yeah?
Yeah. Like I've trained Esme before, and like she's young, she's super bendy, she's super talented. She's like the fresh blood, like of our industry. And I look at these little shits, I'm like, fuck you all. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like,
I know, yeah.
And you were just like, no, I want to try and keep on top of myself and keep up, you know, for as long as I can. And I'm trying to do the same.
Well, the
unsuccessfully.
No, you're doing very successfully. The truth of it is, for me, is that I had a choice when I was younger, go to uni or set up a pole studio, and everyone was like, go to uni, and I was like, well, maybe I'm going to set up a studio instead. So I did that, and that is my life, and I love it. I am very, very passionate about it to this day. I get inspired by my beginner girls, boys, non-binary, all the things, people. I'm constantly being inspired, and I love it, and I always I just really love what I do, so I'm not ready to step down yet.
I feel like so the reason I wanted to talk about that comp was because I'm still umming and ahhing. Yeah, I know, it's been totally sidetracked. This whole conversation has just been a series of sidetracks, hasn't it? But the reason I wanted to talk to you about it, because I'm just intrigued to see where your head's at nowadays, because I'm at this point where I'm like, I'd love to do that. Like, I'd love to do it for a few reasons. Obviously, it's very well known that I do not agree with the change that UK PPC have made, which is why myself and many others don't support it anymore.
Yeah.
And best of luck to them. And I genuinely mean that. Like, they've changed it. It's not a style I like. I don't like the way it's being done now, but I do wish them the best. But I am glad that a space very similar to how it was run has opened up.
Yeah.
Now, part of me feels responsible to enter because I was so annoyed and I kicked off so badly about UK PPC. So part of me feels like I should enter it because it's like, well, Dan, this is what you wanted, but I didn't just want it for me. I wanted it for everyone, you know? So it wasn't just about me wanting to enter it. It was more just like even from a viewer's point of view, I was sad. So yeah, part of me feels like that. And then I go through this thing where I'm like, remember what you said last time you competed. I vividly remember being so angry because I was so tired. My body was killing me. I remember saying to the girls, I was like, next time I say I want to do a tricks competition, you better remind me of this time, like remind me of this conversation. And I really remember it because I remember now I'm just like, God, I remember the way I felt that day. And I don't really want to go back to that because it was horrible. And So yeah, it's one of those things where
So do you know what I would say to you if I was coaching you? I would ask you why you want to do it, what are your goals are, like we've just discussed, and then I would say, why not take this opportunity to go out there and do something you've always wanted to do, not worry about putting the biggest tricks in there, make sure that you stand out and you're different, because usually that will pay off. And if it doesn't pay off with a trophy, it will pay off with the viewers.
Well, that's why I'm thinking of doing Sausage Generation, and again, this is a thing, another different topic, but with competitions, I also feel like you shouldn't just go on the stage for the sake of it. You can't. I have to have a theme or something I want to do. Like I can't be like, I'm going to enter, and if I get through, I kind of need to be like, I've got this idea, I want to bring it to life. Whereas I can't think of anything at the moment. I don't know. I've still got time. I can't think of anything that I'd want to bring to the stage at that competition. Then there's another part of me that's also like, well, Dan, what if there's lots of the big pole idol names? What if Bendy Kate, Lizette Kroll, you, Charlotte, Sam King, what if we all entered it and supported it? What a great show would that be?
Yeah,
like, what a great
amazing
show. And that's the only time where I do move a little bit more towards your point of view of being like, yeah, okay, try your best, but just be okay with the fact that you're probably not going to win a competition like that, because it's going to be full of your biggest competition, So
I think my only hesitation about that comp is I've looked at the judging criteria, and there is very, very few marks for vibe or theme or artistic.
It's a very
technically based competition.
I need to look again, so I can't say right now, because I looked briefly.
I only looked briefly too, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, I could have swore it was like 10 points for tricks, and then the rest of it was like 10 points performance. And I remember saying to Rachel Britton, one of my instructors, I was like, actually, it wasn't as trick focused as I had expected it to be. But I need to double check that. So you might actually be right there. So
no,
maybe
I don't know. I think there just isn't 10 marks for theme, like any kind of theme or vibe or like costume. So there's no like. So for example, if you Toxic Cherry, when she does her big
shows.
There's I think I am going to look at it again now. I think I remember seeing there wasn't like marks for that. Yeah, if you know what I mean.
But yeah, and the thing is, especially for people like Toxic Cherry, those points are so important because she must spend hours. Oh my god, the amount of costumes, props. It's a theatre show when you go and see. Oh my god, she puts on a theatre show. I could literally watch her all day. I love Cherry. And she's a great example. So I watch her, and I think I've judged her before. And again, she's not really my style when it comes to pole tricks or style, whatever.
Yeah.
But I can still appreciate what she does. Yeah. God, I love what she does. She actually reminds me a bit more of the old school style. But yeah. It's so I'm just going through that whole thing at the moment, and I don't know whether that's just because I'm getting older. I say that like I'm getting older. I'm not old. I'm only 34, but in pole years, I'm getting on. I mean, some more. Babes, I fucking pulled my back the other day wiping my own ass. Can you believe that?
That's amazing.
I pulled my back wiping my butt. I was
you can't warm up every time you go to the loo now.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like, part of me is a bit like, as much as I'd love to, should I? And it's that whole thing of like, competing does that to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. I think you and I would be in different categories anyway for that comp.
Of course, because you're gonna do heels, aren't you?
I would do heels. Yeah.
Of course you would. Yeah. See, I would do tricks because that's really if you're going to go into pole idols and you have to choose between heels and tricks. Sure, I'd love to do heels, but I feel like I'm in a pole as a pole idol. I'm better known for tricks, really. I guess. Do you know what I mean?
I'm going to say as well, like. You do move beautifully. I love that the last 20 minutes of this podcast is just us massaging each other's ego, but like
let's keep going.
you do move beautifully with and without heels, but like I personally prefer your movement without heels. Like you're great in heels.
I actually dance in heels, by the way, because it's just different for me, and I feel like I've done pole for so long that I like doing something different. So that's actually why. But I don't consider myself famous for it.
Do you know, as a respect for you actually, because as a heels dancer, what you haven't done is been like, I'm a tricks poler and I've put on some heels. You do the workshops with the people, you learn the techniques, you learn the styles, and you have developed yourself and become a heels dancer as well, which is,
Yeah.
I really like it. I don't like it when people put on a pair of heels, enter a comp and then expect to win because they're strong and they can do tricks and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, have a little bit of respect. It is a different thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen people who have entered like pole theatre and they've entered that category, classique, and then they've just done loads of tricks. And I've thought, that's not really what this category is about.
Yeah.
But oh god, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, well, this has been so fun. Like, I've loved talking to you, and I'm so glad that we got to talk about this. Oh my god, totally just spat then. I'm so glad that we got to talk about this topic because there's so much to it, isn't there? There's so many different sides to it. But
and you know what? It all boils down to the fact that pole is subjective and it's artistic.
Yes.
And that is why we all love it.
Exactly. And that's why as well, I wanted to do this podcast because I didn't want anyone to think there was beef about our differing opinions, because I love it when people have different opinions to me. And I think people have this misconception that it's my opinion or no one's opinion. Absolutely not. I love
and people love drama, don't they? So I think a few people were like, oh, because I'm quite a fence sitter, and it looked like I was like, I'm coming off my fence to have a go at Dan Rosen. And then I didn't reply to you straight away as well, because like I had baby stuff to do. So, and I texted you, didn't I? And I was like, I will be replying to your comments so that it's out there for people to see, but bear with, type thing. But yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, please do message us. Let us know what are your thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the subject? Do you agree with Annie or do you agree with me? Like, or are you a little bit in the middle? Let us know. But Annie, thank you so much for coming on. What's coming up for you? Have you got any events coming up that you want to promote?
Yes, please.
Dan, you got a Slink weekend?
Yeah, Slink weekend.
I just saw you post about it.
Yeah, we're doing another one in the summer, just trying to find out which month is going to be best for everyone, because I know summer isn't a great month to do things anyway for a lot of people. And then
I'm one of those really annoying people that I'm not going to be attending it, but I've clicked one of the months just to be really annoying.
Thanks, babe. No, honestly, it's actually that kind of thing. It does actually help with interaction on stories, to be fair, so thank you.
It does.
And then one thing, I'm going to say this, because if I don't say this, I'll back out. I'm a great one for having ideas and then never following through them. But I am releasing an online platform, and very much like Pole Destroyers, but absolutely nothing like Pole Destroyers. No, as in like monthly memberships, videos, but it's all the central side of pole, all central side. So no tricks, none of that stuff. You can go to Dan Rosen for that. But
so it's all gonna be stripper style pole. Love. No tricks, just like all base work kind of thing.
Slink, base work, no tricks, none of that.
I love that. Is anyone doing that already?
Probably. There's probably loads of people doing it.
So
but
I don't know of any that are doing that. That's definitely something new, so I love that.
Thanks. And it
will
be...
if you want a little ad somewhere, a little online platform called Polos where you can put an ad about it, let me know.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. And also loads of other stuff that you and I have chatted about, and I will be picking that idea back up next year as well. But just say that. Yeah.
So I think everyone should just go and check out Annie's Instagram. Is it Annie Norris Pole? Annie,
creative,
Annie, yes, Annie, very creative. Dan Rosen Pole, Annie Norris Pole. We've just basically put the word pole at the end of our own names. So go and
is
follow
that not your
Instagram.
surname?
No, my last name is Rosen Pole. I think people got confused.
Right, yes.
Yeah, it's Rosen.
Yeah.
You're
Mine's Norris Pole,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, if you aren't already following Annie and you're a crazy person, go and do that right away. And then also just drop her a message and see what she's got going on. Ask her and be like, how can I give you my money? And she will tell you how. So Annie, thank you so much for coming on. And until next time.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Really hope you enjoyed it. And remember, you can be entered into a giveaway to win a bunch of Polos goodies. All you need to do is head to whichever platform you're listening to us on, give us a 5-star rating. And once you've done that, screenshot it and send it to me on social media, and you'll be entered into a prize draw where you can win lots of cool shit. So go ahead and do it now. Send me a screenshot and I'll enter you into the draw. Until next time, bye.
That was all the tea that you can get this week. Join me next time right here. It's the Weekly Tea.